Now let's talk defense a little bit. When we talk defensive techniques, this always intrigues me, but there's a, because some kids, again, come in here and they don't understand what an overfront is, an underfront, an odd front. They have no clue. When we say, well, it's odd. Well, give me some numbers that are odd. Well, 1, 3, 5, okay, great. You understand you're in an odd front if you're playing, and that number of down linemen is considered an odd front. But what technique do each one of these young men play? And we'll talk positions here in a few minutes. But when you see a D lineman aligned in a certain area, we don't refer to him, hey, go line up as a nose guard. No. We don't say, hey, go line up over the guard. No, that's not the way it's used. There's techniques that are used. We say, hey, line up in a zero technique. Well, a zero technique is just head up or shoe to shoe with a center. That's a true nose. You know, we were back in the day, they would say that's an old nose guard there. Well, it's a zero technique. Yes, he is a nose, but he's a zero. That means he's head up right over the top. If we see a guy shaded that center, we'll call him a one technique. Okay? He's still a nose, and when you start riding up, you know, the end, the tackle, the nose, the end, he's still that nose, but he's in a shaded technique. He's not head up on it. He's shaded. Some people you see tilt their nose. They'll drop him and tilt him in a shade. If you're in a considered a 2-eye, we see a lot of 2-eyes. A 2-eye is nothing more than inside eye of that guard, of the offensive guard. We all know guard, if you're on the offensive side of the ball, center, guard, tackle, obviously your ends. But a 2-eye, he's aligned on the inside of either the guard of the eye technique. We'll keep him inside. His responsibility essentially is to keep the inside arm free. He's responsible for the A gap. Everything you talk about in defense, there's gaps. And you'll hear people talk. You may hand you see something that happens on a Saturday or a Friday night. You hand a power off, and it just splits, and we call it spits. It spits out, and it goes. And when that happens, when it splits it and it gets out, then somebody was not gap sound. So you might have had a gap and you got washed, or you didn't maintain your gap integrity. So a gap. It's also known as a G alignment. So you'll see some, and you get really technique with some of this, you'll see an over G front, an under G front. That means that guy is in a 2-eye technique. Because he could very well be in a shade and still be called the same thing, but if we attach G to it, it means that shade or that nose is a little bit wider. A 2 technique is nothing more than head up. It's shoe to shoe. Again, most of these guys, they can play either the A or B gap. That's a little difficult when you start talking offensive football, because when we know if we get a 2-eye, he's an A gap player. But if you get a head up guy, and those defensive guys, they've got the capability of going B gap or A gap on you. A 3 technique is, as you see over here, is an outside shade. Again, his job is to keep his outside arm free. He's a B gap player. Now, he didn't have to always be, because they could stunt. They could what they call long stick. They could bring them across. But for the most part, if he's aligned in that technique and there's no movement, that's exactly what he's going to be responsible for, is the B gap. A 4-eye. 4-eye is the same thing like a 2-eye, but the only thing is it is off the tackle. It's inside shade of the tackle. He's a B gap player. And you see a lot of this. 4 technique, it's head up, shoe to shoe. 5 technique is just a little wider. And 6 technique is now we start talking about the tight ends. How do those defensive ends align to a tight end? All right, well, if you're in a 6 technique, if we're up there talking, hey, what do they do in tray formation? What do they do in ace formation? How do they play their ends versus tray? Tray is a tight end and 2 for us. You'll see a little bit of that in just a few minutes. Well, coach, he's in a head up, or he's in a 6 technique. That means he's shoe to shoe with him. A 6 technique, a 4 technique, and a 2 technique are the same things, but over the different positions. Does that make sense? So the 2's over the guard, okay, the 4's over the tackle, the 6 is over the tight end. 7 technique. The 7 technique is inside eye of that tackle. I'm sorry, of that tight end. Again, he's a C gap player at that point. You got your gaps. You see your gaps there, A, B, and C. Some are defensively, we'll call it X, Y, and Z to the left, A, B, and C to the right. And some people go A, B, C to the right, A, B, C to the left. I mean, so it's just really how you communicate. Defensively is, we'll talk X, Y, and Z. 7 technique is inside. 7 technique is similar to a 2-eye and a 4-eye over their respective positions. 8 technique is a really, it's a wider than a tight end. So you'll see these defensive ends, they'll line up wide, and that's an 8 technique. Usually most of the time on those guys, he'll have contain, or he'll be heavy coming off the edge. And there'll be some type of pressure coming with a wide technique right there. A 9 technique, outside eye of the tight end, he's just a little tighter to that tight end, but he's still outside eye to him, and he keeps his arm free. So, again, a lot of our players, you just think if you're an offensive lineman, you have to communicate. You have to communicate daily in your room with your offensive line coach. If you're a defensive lineman, you have to communicate with your D-line coach and what technique you're in. Every call represents a different alignment for you. So if you had, I line up outside eye of the guard. Well, no, we don't want to hear that. We want to hear that you're in a 3 technique. And because we'll say, okay, well, you're going to line up in a 3 and you're going to stem to a 2-eye. On go, you're stemming. You'll see these guys line up and you'll see go, and those guys stem real quick before the ball is snapped. So you got to be able to communicate that. You have to be able to understand those things. It's really big in just the verbiage and how you can walk into a room and not be like, like some people walk into algebra, and if you miss the first 2 or 3 days of algebra, the week 2 is pretty tough on you, because all the stuff you talked about week 1, week 2 is you're using that. And if you didn't get it week 1, you're in trouble. It's the same way here. You have to get this stuff early, and that's why part of our summer meetings that are going on right now is going back to basics. Teaching young men how we call things, what basic pressures look like. So that's what's going on right now. Next. Now, so as you look at this, let's talk about this. Now you're going to hear an over front, an under front. An over and under front, just basic call here, is off of a 4-down. It's a 4-down. And really we talk under front is nothing more than we look at when we declare the strength of a formation. And let's talk about that too. What is the strength of a formation? Defensives call their strength according to where the tight end aligns, or where the back aligns. If they're in a balanced formation, a 2-by-2 formation, where's the back aligned? If all things are similar, most people call the strength of a formation to the field. Okay, and so in this case here, the tight end is now set to the boundary. So we would call this one of 2 ways. If we were talking offensive football in here, I would tell you, because we don't care about this, we only care about how they align. We'll call our strengths to the field, okay, from an offensive standpoint. So we would say this is an under front. That means he is in anybody know what technique that is? 3. He would be in a 8, a wide 8, that's right. He is in a 2-eye or a shade. If he was tighter to that center, we would call it that 1 technique, or a really tight shade. He is in a 5. Yeah, a 5 at that point. Okay? He's in a 5 technique. And we would say, so our communication, if we were sitting here game planning, we'd say, okay, if he's in a 5 technique, well, isn't a 5 technique here, and also a 5 technique is here? Absolutely. So we would say, all right, Will, we want to know, as they break these things down, Will, are they in a wide 5, or is he in a tight 5? A lot of that everybody's trying to find where's the bubble at. Let's run to the bubble. So that's considered an under. An under front is, we call the formation, or the strength to the field. Where do they align the shade? If they align the shade inside, or the nose, where do they align him at? They align him inside. And then that's an under front to us. They're under to the field. All right, if they had the 3 technique here, then he's more than likely going to be inside leverage here, that would be an overfront. They're over that guard. So instead of going, hey, they're in a shade 5, 3, 8, we just say, hey, it's an underfront to the field. And that tells all our coaches understand what it is. So now you've heard all the techniques. Now we can use one word to break the verbiage down where the whole entire offensive line understands, hey, they're in an under to the field. Now, if we were calling our strength to the tight end, let's say we were on the defensive side of the ball right now, and Coach Chavis said, hey, we're declaring anytime they attach the tight end, don't matter if he's to the field, to the boundary, we're going to declare our strength to the tight end. So we want to be in an overfront to the strength. So that's why so this could be called, from a defensive standpoint, you could see them, they've set him here, there's your tight end, that would be considered an overfront to the strength. I probably just confused every one of you, but you kind of see what we're going through there, okay? How we've got if a linebacker, and I think, do we have the backer alignment? Do you have it in here? No, 10 and 30 of the backers. If a backer is aligned inside shoulder of that guard or outside shoulder of that guard, we call that, if he's here, it's a 10 backer. He's in a 10 backer technique. So you'll hear us talk to our linebackers, hey, get in a 10 look, get in a 10 look. Well, that means get in that inside leverage of that guard. Hey, we need you in a 30 backer. See a 30 backer look? That means like a 3 technique, get in that 30 backer look. He's in a 30 backer there. Okay? The wider they go, hey, he's in a 40 backer alignment. Anything on that, Will? Just adjusting on that? The wider, a 50 backer. You usually don't see any wider than that. That's really wide there. It's usually 30, 10. You'll see a 20 backer. A 20 backer is more of a head up, like a 2 technique. So that's, again, how we communicate with our linebackers and the alignment we want them in. Several different things as you look. Linebackers, as we teach our backers. There's different things we'll read. Some backers will read linemen. Some backers read backs. Depends on the tendency of an offense that they've given you. You know, you may be reading that near back to you. If it's a 1-back set, all reads go to the running back. If it's 2-back set, I may be reading either the tight end or I may be reading the down lineman here. So it's important you're always calling out the strength. You'll hear our defense. As they come up, they're always looking for strength call. Right. Left. 2-backer. 2-backer right, 2-backer right. You're hearing that communication being communicated because it's telling everybody we've called the strength. These guys don't know how many backers in. They don't know if there's a tight end in. They're having to hear where is the strength, and that accords to where I align, where my alignment is. Okay, and so you'll hear our linebackers really communicating there as well. All right, go ahead. Now, same thing. Field is to the right. We've now set our tight end to the right. Okay, our strength is to the right. All right, so we would call this an overfront. There it is. He's in an over technique. There you go. He's in a head up. He might be shading a little bit. Wide 5, 3 technique, and I would call this a 9 technique right here. Okay, so when you start looking at these backers, look how wide he is now. So communicating wise, he's in a 40 or 50 backer look right here because he's a wide backer. You'll see a lot of these centers will come up and they're always IDing. They're going to try to find the mic. Where's the mic? You're pointing the mic. Why? Is because a lot of things that happen, everything is worked off the mic backer. If they bring an extra hat down, let's say that they brought this free safety, they brought him down. All right, we may be calling that the mic, but all of a sudden they bring the free safety down and they bump the wheel backer in the box and they push him, we may change the point. So you may hear the center go, you know, whatever that kid's name, 32, 38, 38's not the mic, 6 is the mic, 6 is the mic. I'm going to re-ID the mic, even though he's really a wheel backer. They're trying to push the points of where the zone combination or the power route or the counter kick, all that occurs, and it's because of where it's all where the point backer is. How many backers they got in the box, and we're going to ID where the mic would be. This is an overfront. I don't know how I got off on that, but this is overfront. This will be considered a sandbacker. You'll see that in just a few minutes. This to us is a tray formation. Tight ends attached. I would be willing to bet we have 2 out here off the line and 1 on the line up there. They defensively they were an over football team, an over defense. And we knew that, a lot of times if we know what you are by our film study, then we'll set our strength according to what we know you're going to set yours and try to work off of it. It's a chess match. Yes, sir.
I mean, and that's a good point, because are you anticipating, because at your rate, you're wanting to get them out of misalignment, so when do you make that determination on holding your ground and calling your play, or just having your team
well, a lot of it is, how much movement do they do as a defense? How much the scouting reports that we have on these guys, hey, look, they're going to line up in this and they're going to stem to this. So if we know that, we're going to set our strength because we know where you're going to be, and then we'll be able to work off of it. Because you'll see us set our strength and then switch our strength over. Doesn't mean you have to keep your strength there. So if we know that you're going to set your strength according to us, then we may flip-flop a tight end, we call bounce. We'll bounce a tight end over or trade over. And we trade them over or bounce them over. The bounce would take 2 over. It means if we had another tight end in here, if we bounce, we would take 2. If we trade, we take 1. And we let you set your strength, and we're going to change the strength of this whole formation to the left, and now we're going to try to outflank it. It's all a numbers game.
How much freedom do you give your quarterback in making that determination?
No, not much. Not much. We do that from the box. You'll see a lot of we'll go fast. Tempo is misconstrued. Everybody thinks tempo is fast. Tempo is really the ability to change the course, so that go really fast, go real slow, huddle up. So changing the course. If we just played one way the whole time for defensive coordinators, it's easy. But if we change the tempo of a game, so you'll see us line up, and then we'll check the sidelines and to see where you're at with it. Some of it is gimmick. Some of it is, hey, we're truly trying to check where you're at and see if you're true to your tendencies. So that makes sense. All right, that's an overfront. Let's go to the next one. Here's a bear look. Now you hear people talk about what is a bear front. A bear is basically stems out of an odd look, and you're really taking 5 defenders, 5 D linemen, and covering up the 5 O linemen. That's kind of what it comes down to. You can get to bear many different ways. You can line up in an over-front and stem it all, shift it all to bear. But a bear front truly is, you're a head up 0 nose, and you're covering everybody up that's on the line. Okay? So 5 for 5 essentially is what you've got right there. Now what you've done, because you've got only 5 offensive linemen, and you've got now 5 defensive linemen all covered up, at this point, in any pass protection, your backer, or your running back, is now considered what we call, he's responsible for the roof. Anything above the bear front is called the roof. All right? And you'll see offensive linemen, whether they're here, whether they're tapping their head, they're tapping their butt, they're signifying back to that quarterback and back to that lineman or that running back that, hey, we're in a bear, we've identified this as bear. All pass protections are off. You have the roof, or you have the extra hat that's coming in the box, whether it's a safety or whether it's a backer that's walked out, or it's any pressure off the edge, any nickel that comes in, it's yours, because we can only block 5. Okay, so that's considered a bear front right there. We obviously play a lot of bear. We'll get in and out of it. It's really difficult from an offensive coordinator standpoint to scheme against and go against. It has its weaknesses because it's forcing you on the back end to play different coverage there. You're going to be a lot of man coverage, and a lot of pressure is probably coming when you get bear front. You're susceptible to speed option in a bear front. It's all about answers. What's your answer when they go to bear? What are you doing? It's a chess match. They'll line up in bear. Doesn't mean they got to stay there because they can stem out of bear. They can stem right back to a over or under front, or just a straight odd front, whatever their base defense is. So, okay. This is Okie. Okie is nothing more than, and it's an odd front. It's what it is. And we call it Okie. And the way we identify this, there's a backer out here, we call him the Sam or the nickel Sam, okay? And we would go Sam, Mike, Will, Jack. That's the Jack backer. Y'all saw a lot of odd front last year. That's what they played last year. They played a whole lot of odd, and that was their base defense. And so we see a lot of this. This is you see more and more defenses now kind of going into that odd look. They think it's better against a spread, a team that maybe passes the ball in different formations. And so when you're looking at this and you're game planning against this, it's really about the jack. Where is your jack backer aligned? And so we'll get into Okie front. Chief loves running Okie. You'll see us run some of this. And you can see very easy now how that you could say we're in an under front and let's stem to Okie. So if you were an under front, you're taking that shade that knows he's here, 5 technique, you're in a 3 technique, and this guy now has hands on the ground. And on move, he stems, he steps up, he steps back, and you jump right into Okie front. Again, rules change when you go to odd from an offensive line standpoint right there, okay? You can see, and there are teams that'll play the jack to the field. You'll see Okie with a jack to the field. Anybody know what that would mean? The jack is here is to the what? Where's he at now? To the boundary. So if they would line the jack up here to the field. And so again, it changes a lot in your pass protection, just identifying where he's at. You'll see some people that'll put the jack in the middle. They'll put the jack on the hash, or they'll stack the jack in here and move him around on snap when they're bringing pressure. You can really disguise a lot of pressure here. Usually when you start putting someone over that center with 2 backers in the box, we now call that an odd stack defense. Okay, because they're odd and they're stacked behind. So there's a lot of people still running an odd stack, but that was, I guess, probably back in early 2000s, the odd stack was really kind of the in thing, and it was causing people to change their rules on some things. Still some people run that today. It's a good defense. Go ahead. So defensive alignment, just a base over front defense, and this is just the way we call it. You heard me talk a little bit about it. You got your end, your tackle, and your nose. If it was if it was a under front defense, then he would be here. Remember now, your nose would be here, and your tackle would be there. I mean, it's just a base look. You got your Sam or nickel Sam. What you're finding now is the Sam position. The Sam linebacker now is you're seeing a lot of people play with nickel. A lot of nickel look. You're getting a lot of safeties that are now so athletic that they're dropping down and playing that nickel Sam position, simply because that they can bring pressure off the edge. They're tall, they're rangy, and really cause some matchups. When you start in formation people, you can get a better athlete on a faster kid. So you'll see a lot of nickel look. They're bringing that extra DB in. You go to dime, you get another DB in the field, take another linebacker off the field. You got the dime backer. So corner, strong safety is the way we call it. Free safeties to the boundary. Nickel Sam or Sam, Mike Will. That's the way we identify. We'll talk in a few minutes. I think we're going to talk kind of how we call our offense as well.